Welcome to the Darkstream, VoxDay, VoxDay.net, and unauthorized.tv. I hope we're getting some sound here. Not actually sure we are, but looks like my meter's moving, so that should be a good sign. Audio and video are okay. That's good. So sorry, it's been a while since I've streamed, but as it turns out, as you can probably still hear from my voice, I actually had a bit of bronchitis. I'm fine now. I actually had it for like 2 months, but the doctor was like, you've obviously been taking good care of yourself because, you know, everything's fine except for, you know, you've been coughing a bit. So anyhow, other than my voice being shot, I'm good. Like you all, I've been paying a lot of attention to the recent news, and you know, I wish that I could say that it was a surprise, but you know, if you look at the attempts that were made on the president of, I think it was Slovakia, if you look at the successful attempt that was made on the former Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, you know, it's very clear that you know, Clown World is at war in more places than just Ukraine and the Gaza Strip. So it's not a surprise. Some news just came out very recently that you may not have heard yet. It's up on the blog. I just put it up on the blog about half an hour ago. But it turns out that the police actually knew about the shooter. They had marked him as a person of suspicion on a rooftop 26 minutes before the shots were fired, and long before the people had pointed him out and were trying to draw the police's attention to the fact that this guy was on the roof with a rifle. The fact that the Secret Service appeared to not be very interested in that, the fact that they were quite obviously fielding their G team, as it were. I'm sure you've all seen the one female agent trying to hide behind Donald Trump. Not exactly a good look for the Secret Service. And then, of course, you know, the way that they were ineptly and incompetently attempting to just get the car to leave the premises. It was just crazy. Good grief, Cactus Bear says, why are the police and Secret Service even there? Well, to be honest with you, I'm a little bit surprised that Trump doesn't simply have his own private security team. And to be honest, I'm sure that he does. In fact, you know, I was coming up with a bit of a conspiracy theory where I was wondering if perhaps you know, there was a two-gunman attack with one person in the you know, you've got your obvious patsy, the wind-up toy, who you can't really rely upon to do his job. You know, I believe that they've done analyses that have shown that Lee Harvey Oswald's shots didn't come anywhere near Kennedy. You know, it strikes me as, I mean, I found it very difficult to believe that if they're going to take a shot at the king, why would they rely on such a hapless tool? Now, the obvious reason, of course, is you don't have anything better. You know, if you're desperate, you take your best shot. But here's the thing, you know, if you've got the Secret Service willing to stand down, you know, clearly you've got an amount of influence, you've got resources. You'd think they could do better than a you know, retarded looking 20-year-old guy, you know, who has to know he's not going to get out of there alive. You know, so, but you know, who knows? Maybe they don't. Maybe they're just that desperate. Maybe they can't. I mean, you know, one theme in our analysis of the behavior of Clown World over the past 60 years is that it's very clear that the people who are running it now and its servants now are distinctly inferior in terms of quality and intelligence to the people that were running it, you know, back in the day. You know, there's some pretty sharp people making some pretty intelligent and effective plans back in the day. That doesn't seem to be the case now. You know, if you look at the recent plan to start sanctioning China, you know, because the Russian sanctions have been so effective. I mean, you know, if their only intention is to tear down and destroy the United States, okay, you know, then at least you can argue that that's an intelligent plan that will probably work. You'd have to admit it. But, you know, the whole idea of, you know, yeah, nothing works anymore, including the ruling elite. Yeah, it's true. It's really true. I mean, you know, I've met a number of relatively elite, you know, people my age, and most of them are deeply unimpressive. You know, Alex Soros is quite clearly not in his father's league. Quite clearly. And, you know, that's always been the problem that all successful people have ever had, is that, you know, their children are very, very seldom capable to the same level that they are. There's exceptions. You know, Thomas Watson Jr. was clearly better than his father. His father is very successful, but his son really took it to the next level. You know, then again, you've got the complete opposite side of the equation, where Marcus Aurelius and, you know, ends up with a son who wants to play gladiator. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see how Eric and Don Jr. turn out. I have to admit, I don't have the same hopes for Don Jr. that I once did. Once he married Gavin Newsom's first wife, that seemed to be a inexplicably bad idea. But, you know, who knows? Jeff Bezos really kind of outdid him there. You know, Eric does seem relatively base, but I haven't, you know, when Don was on Twitter and that sort of thing, he seemed to be a bit brighter and a bit more base than his father. But yeah, Enoch Bear agrees. He says, yeah, that marriage is sus for sure. But, you know, there's so much going on behind the scenes that we don't see, that we don't know. You know, and also, you know, there's no accounting for taste. There's just no accounting for taste. And while the slogan is often misused by the Rainbow Coalition, there's a kernel of truth in the idea that the heart wants what what it wants. You know, I can't explain why I feel about my wife the way that I do. You know, I could list her good points. You know, she's very pretty and all that, but that doesn't explain it. You know, and if that's what it is, if it's just a genuine, deep personal connection between Don Jr. and whatever that newscaster or broadcaster's name is, you know, so be it. So be it. But you know, it does make you kind of go, I'm not sure this is the God Emperor we're looking for, if you know what I mean. Not that he necessarily has any interest in it, but it's very clear. You know, a lot of people have said, oh, the whole thing was staged. It's pretty obvious at this point that it wasn't. You know, too much has come out to make it fairly clear that you've got a wind-up toy, you've got the Secret Service standing down, you've got the police having, you know, a report for nearly half an hour that there's a suspicious guy on the rooftops near the rally, and somehow being unable to find him. Yeah, and of course you've got the reports of the casualties in the crowd and so forth. It's pretty clear that this was a green flag sort of situation. You know, the shot that the guy took was actually pretty good. I mean, 150 yards is not that difficult, but if he doesn't turn his head and take it in the ear, it probably would have been effective. And so we can't dismiss the significance of the stand downs and all because, oh, it was a no hope, you know, a no hope difficult shot that it's just going to be a warning and that sort of thing. It was pretty clearly a very intentional attempt to assassinate him. Probably not the first one. Probably not the first time. But hopefully the Trump team will get a lot more serious about its security. I mean, to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised that that he's still doing rallies, even if it is his body double. You know, I know someone who's 20 feet from the fire chief who got hit in the head. It was intense. He said the wound shot out like a fire hose. Yeah, that doesn't sound like it was special effects. Certainly. And the thing is, I'm not criticizing people that are skeptical. So much that we think we know has turned out to be fake. So much that what we think we've seen has turned out to be false, at least in part. I mean, just as recently as October 7th, we had a major event that flat out isn't what it was purported to be. You know, we now know beyond any shadow of a doubt that the Israeli government and some of the Israeli military forces permitted the October 7th attacks to take place. And we also know that a lot of the casualties that day were actually caused by the Israeli forces. You know, so very different than what we thought we knew the day or two after the attack. Dan in Alabama says, hard to believe the powers that be would put all their hopes in a 20-year-old freak. Well, yes and no. The problem, of course, is that you've got to supply a patsy, regardless of how you do it. You know, even if you have the postulated 37 shooters in Dealey Plaza, you know, the 2 on the grassy knoll, the 1 positioned on the ground nearby, the agent in the car, etc., etc. Dan says no second shooter. Well, that was what I postulated. In fact, my original idea, before we knew anything about the fire chief getting shot, my original idea was that there were 2 shooters, one in the crowd in the stands, and who was going to fire in the confusion caused by the first shot. And so my suspicion was that the death in the stands was actually the second shooter, who was taken down by plainclothes security when he pulled out his weapon. That was my thought based on the facts that were at hand at that point in time. Once it became apparent that the victim was there with his daughters and that he was a retired fire chief, that's when I decided that couldn't possibly, you know, it was very, very unlikely. I mean, nobody who's gonna, you know, nobody who cares at all about their daughters is going to take them along in that kind of situation. You know, it's just not necessary. And so, like I said, you know, these sorts of events require lots of people to plan. And, you know, the simpler that you make a plan, the more likely it is to be successful. And, you know, thanks to the police and the Secret Service standing down, then, you know, he did come pretty close. What about the lady taking the video behind Trump? She didn't even flinch. I think that's I think that's a lot less suspicious than people think. Women today have a strong sense of nothing happening to them. And I think that she simply didn't perceive herself to be in any danger. You know, as long as you're watching, as long as you're filming, then it's not about you, then you're safe. I mean, you even see some element of that in professional camera crews. You know, they just go wading into these violent situations with their cameras, you know, blithely assuming that they're off limits because they're cameramen. So, did Trump have a vest on? I'm certain he did. Holes in his jacket. Did he get hit in the torso? It's possible. I don't know. You know, based on the angle, it is possible. And also, that would be the correct way to be firing, is at the body mass first, and then at the head as the recoil brings up the barrel. That's how I was always taught to shoot anyhow. And so it's entirely possible that he did get hit, but the body armor took care of it. I don't think so, though. I doubt it, because number one, the possible hole looked pretty small. And number two, Trump didn't make any movement that indicated getting hit, which I assume would be at least akin to getting punched hard in the side. You know, even with a vest on, even if it protects you, you're still going to feel it. And so, I just doubt it. It's possible. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying that I think it's unlikely. So, but yeah, the fact that the kid's parents are both therapists, you know, the fact that he was he had issues and all that sort of thing, you know, he very much fit the wind-up toy. I'm sure that they'll find out that he was, you know, being treated by someone, you know, because you just don't go off and do this. Yeah, the shooter's dad's a psychologist. Could the dad have MK Ultra the son? Well, he certainly could have, and he's almost certainly involved in that sort of thing, but it's very unlikely that he would have prepared his own son for it. You know, more likely, he was required to hand his son over to somebody who you know, did their best to turn him into a weapon. What happened to the fire chief would have been done to Trump would have been pretty awful. Well, yeah, that's what somebody pointed out, was that they wanted to show that on TV. They wanted it to be something that, you know, would be splashed all over everything. And so I really hope, and I pray that Donald Trump takes this to heart and realizes these are not people to be negotiating with. These are not people who you can work out a business deal with. You know, these are people who are actually trying to murder him, to murder his nation, to murder his faith, and there's no accommodation that is necessary or possible. And, you know, one thing I really agree with Anonymous Conservative on is that it's time to stop all this pussyfooting around and trying to manage things calmly so that people keep going to the restaurants and that sort of thing. You know, what people want is the truth. What people want is they want good to take on evil and destroy it, to end it. Enoch Bear says, if he wins and doesn't go full bull in a china shop, I don't know what to think. Precisely. You know, and you know, the J.D. Vance selection as vice president is not particularly encouraging. It's not as bad as it could have been. You know, it's not as bad as Rubio or Mitt Romney or you know, Victoria Nuland. You know, it's as Pillow Vendor says, Vance seems like he's still on the reasonable immigration boomer train. He does, you know, and that's the approach that is clearly outmoded, that's clearly failed. You know, and he's 78. What does he have to lose? Well, the problem is that if you're the kind of person who fundamentally cares about what other people think, and you care more about what other people think of you than about doing the right thing, you know, you're always going to make unnecessary and counterproductive compromises. And, you know, because Trump has always been a negotiator, he's always viewed himself as the great negotiator, it's really uncertain that he has what it takes to go to war with the deep state. You know, maybe he does. Maybe he's learned it. You know, maybe this will wake him up. You know, but you know, the problem is that there's as many cautionary signs as there are good signs. I mean, you know, why are these guys still all Israel first? How does that make any sense if they want to be American leaders? You know, why are these guys still not only not deporting tens of millions of people, but they're still, you know, mimicking the same pro-immigration, it's good for business blather that, you know, has been proven conclusively to be completely wrong. I don't know. I find it difficult to explain. You know, we know from Biden that the president isn't in charge. Maybe he's just not in charge, even if he wins. You know, maybe he's only allowed to color out around the edges, and which would mean that, you know, comprehensive societal failure is baked in the cake. The thing is that even if you have, you know, real ultimate power, it doesn't necessarily do you any good. Sometimes the problems are just too intractable. I don't know if you subscribe to Castalia Library Substack or not, but if you do, one thing we've been doing is we serialize the Cambridge medieval history. And you can see those green books up in the upper corner. So if we're successful long enough, we'll eventually serialize the entire thing on the Substack. But right now it's dealing with the Imperial reorganization that took place beginning under Diocletian and that continued under Constantine. And, you know, these guys tried everything. And nothing that they did managed to fix the Roman economy, because the problems were structural and the problems were related to the moral failings of the people. You know, if people don't want to work, if people don't want to do the necessary work, it doesn't matter how you rearrange the incentives, they just won't do it. You know, if nobody wants to fix the roads will not get fixed. The bridges will not be maintained. Eventually, your interstate commerce falls apart because you didn't keep the roads up. Or because you banned all trucks because you didn't want any more, you know, any more carbon. You know, so ruined by immigration even then. Well, yes and no. I mean, it was, can you really call it immigration when the quote-unquote immigrants were actually people of the, you know, subjects of the empire, who were just basically you know, taking power in their own lands. You know, I'm not sure that immigration is necessarily a fair way to put that, but there certainly were a lot of barbarians eventually becoming Caesars, becoming various you know, comites and so forth. But of course, by that time, nobody had any allegiance to the empire. I mean, you know, the empire had moved from Rome to Byzantium. So, Q1882 says the Flint, Michigan water post was really eye-opening. It really hit home. Well, you know, I said a long time ago that, you know, that Western civilization was at risk, and what that meant in tangible terms was, you know, we might not keep indoor plumbing. There's no guarantees. You know, indoor plumbing exists because of the particular form of our civilization and our society. We, unlike many societies in the past, we value not living in our own sewage. But that sewage is going to be produced. And so either you deal intelligently with it, and you have a whole infrastructure built up and devoted to it. You prioritize the resources that go to that, or you don't. I mean, you know, Trump's choice for a vice president is married to a woman from a society that doesn't value it. That's not a good sign. I'm not saying that that Vance's wife doesn't know how to use the toilet. I'm sure she has adapted to our cultural norms. I mean, she's a Yale Law graduate, so. But, you know, just because she has doesn't mean that her family, their descendants, are necessarily going to put the same stress, put the same priority on that as Vance's family. You don't know. All you can know is that people from different cultures prefer their own cultures. They prefer their own way of doing things. It doesn't mean that they're against indoor plumbing. You know, it doesn't mean that they have a problem with it or anything. That's not necessary to destroy it. All that's necessary to destroy it is to not put a high priority on it. Because if you don't put a high priority on it, like as we saw, you know, in Flint, the people running that city didn't put a high priority on clean water. They didn't care. Crazy Bear says his real name is not Vance. What is his real name? I don't know that much about the guy. All I needed to know that it wasn't a good choice was that Ben Shapiro thought it was a really good choice. If Ben Shapiro thinks it's a really good choice, it's not good for America. The fact that, you know, some lefties are pretending to freak out about it is irrelevant. They always do that. James Bowman. Why is he calling himself Vance then? Is this like pen name or something? Because let me tell you, anyone who's using a pen name is deeply suspicious. And Laura Loomer too loves Vance. Vance Day, yeah. Anyhow, you know, he's pretty clearly James Donald Bowman. Okay. Why did he change his name to Vance? Did he just think it sounded cooler? I mean, it's not like you know, his name was like Nimrata or something that you needed to hide from the populace. Anyhow, well, that's really all I've got time for tonight because my voice is running out here. But you know, I'm glad that Donald Trump survived the assassination attempt. I hope he will take to heart the significance of that. Oh, I see. Okay, Vance was his grandparents' name. They raised him. Okay, that's fair. I have no problem with that. If you're, you know, not an issue. Anyhow, have a good week. I'm probably going to stream tomorrow on a very, very important subject, obviously much more important than the attempted murder of the next president of the United States. We're going to be discussing the Euro 2024 final between England and Spain tomorrow night. So I fully expect to see less than 10% of you here for that one. In any event, have a good evening. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.